Agent Snake says, do you guys want combat changes in 14, and what would you want?
So I never want a total overhaul of the system because 14, in my opinions, that sounds really fun in the short term. But as we start to look at some of the chronic pains that WoW is having trouble solving, each expansion they say they're going to try to solve it, and they're having trouble solving it.
Mm-hmm.
Versus why 14 feels so good when we hit what feels like a lull is that legacy content still largely functions in 14. Yes, they had to make some changes to Sephiroth to bring it up as an Unreal, but large combat changes break old content. And so I would rather have a game that functions long term than something that feels new today. So first of all, nothing large. I think adding new classes already breaks a lot of stuff. No need to make it worse. But within minor changes, I would love to see them make sure that all classes are viable, and that feels like something that P8 brought into question. And I love the idea of class identity getting to show itself in new modes. So Crystalline Conflict, I think Crystalline Conflict was phenomenal. Bosges Adnor, the Lost Actions, and the Twice Come Ruin and all that was a phenomenal way of reinventing the combat system within a set off side. And so if you didn't like Bosges Adnor, that's fine. It's done. And so if they're going to make combat changes, like Criterion, I think is a really great chance for them to say, what if some of the classes feel a little bit different in this content? And if you don't like that, it's just the one thing.
Yeah. I wouldn't personally put combat changes as like the thing that I think 14 needs the most. I would rather have them make the open world like Bajaz Adnor and funnel people into the zones. And, like I would rather have things that take advantage of the unique aspects of 14 that I feel are underserved. Like that's where I would have them invest that money. But note that, like what I just said, is an insane massive amount of work task, and we just got data center visit, literally sure. Then going the Guild Wars 2 model of like funneling people into zones and making those zones active and having all these things. Like that would be something that I think would be really exciting to see. And Fates don't cut it. Fates in Baja are better. They're just better. The critical engagements, and then you have the like all of that it just functions better. I'd love to see that in the game. I think that'd be so cool.
Imagine if Hunt Trains had duels or something exactly. Tied to like the fight,
well,
like
and then all
the final 2 zone hunts had right. Duels tied to them.
And the only way you get that is an entire restructure of how servers are already functioning. Now they're getting closer and closer and closer, but at the end of the day, like that's more than combat changes that I want. But what I would like in terms of combat would be what I call stacks. I would love the ability to set certain abilities on the same button and have it just kind of function one after the next. So that way I can actually rearrange and set up my hotbars in a much more clean fashion. Some jobs in this game function way better on controller than some other jobs. And there is a clear difference, and it is a feeling for sure. And so if they gave me the ability to say, I want to fire this, if I use this ability, then this ability is sitting on top of it. It goes, then I press it again and it goes next, because you're not going to like do the PvP, system in PvE, but the ability just to kind of start to say like, listen, this ability is never being used unless it follows this ability. Why not just boom, let me just stack those together and call it a day. That would be something that would benefit, I think, me and controller players immensely in the world of 14.
I think you can add the complexity back in at that point by allowing for more situational stuff, right? Mm-hmm. If you have 17 buttons, then the rotation tends to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, all the way up. But if you have less buttons, then you start to rely more on like situational things. And that's where the complexity comes back in. Guild Wars has like basically like 12 buttons on the bar. So it's like a third of some, it's like a third of Summoner. And yet the complexity still sits there. My actual core rotation, by the time you factor for timers and stuff, assuming the boss isn't doing anything weird, my core rotation in Guild Wars is a 28 button long combination. So it's really long out of less buttons. So like I would say, just for anybody that, as Brian talks about that, if your first concern is, well, wouldn't that make the game more boring if your 1, 2, 3 button combo was now 1, 1, 1? No, because ideally then you're getting to lean more on, without just total RNG on all classes, that people who like Dancer can play Dancer and the people who don't play Dancer. But it would be nice if you could start to reward me more heavily for using like the right mitigation for the right ability and things like that on Warriors, so that there is more thought going into my abilities and less, can I do this many in a row, Dance Dance Revolution style, just with more buttons for the sake of more buttons.